Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the new home of power mining analysis. In today's video, we're going to be covering earnings from 3 of the top Bitcoin miners we follow on the channel. We've got a lot to talk about in today's video, but before we get into it, take a second, hit the like button, you guys. It's a huge help to myself, the channel. It helps get this content to other people like you who may find value. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join. We just hit 41,800 subscribers, which is absolutely phenomenal. We're pushing ever closer to that 42,000 milestone. And finally, let us know in the comment section below if you're currently holding shares of SATO, Wulf, or BitDeer, and your thoughts on earnings or preliminary earnings that we discuss in today's video. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's update. Okay guys, so that's right. Today's video, we've got Anthony Power back. There's truly no shortage of news in the Bitcoin mining space right now. Today's video, we're going to be talking about a variety of different earnings that some companies have been putting out in the last day or two. Anthony, before we get into that though, we had what's known, I've seen on BNN now, the flash crash in Bitcoin overnight, dropping to, I guess about 7-8% and then almost fully rebounding this morning. So I wanted to get your quick take on that and then we'll jump into some of the earnings here.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like people are planned to sell when it reached an all-time high, because literally as it reached that $69,000 mark in the US, that was the all-time high, and then all of a sudden resistance kicked in and there was a big sell-off then. So maybe people are setting their minds, once it reached all-time high, that's when they're going to start taking profits. But we've just seen the ETF funds relentlessly buying more Bitcoin. So yesterday there was a net input into the ETF funds. So although Grayscale is still selling, the other funds are buying up Bitcoin in excess of what Grayscale are selling. So there's a net positive going into these funds. And the Bitcoin price, got to $67,000 this morning. It's dropped a little bit back, but I just think it's a case of, hold tight at the moment, hold the line. We'll see it go back above the all-time high short. It's just shaking off a few people who are looking to take some profits or planned profits at that all-time high. But yeah, once it goes past there, who knows where it's going to end up.
Yeah, it does seem nothing can hold it back right now, and you're right. It appears a lot of people had a sell order right around that all-time high. I guess a little earlier than my strategy. My dad's not a huge fan of Bitcoin. He thinks it's a huge pyramid scheme, Anthony. So anytime there's weakness, he texts me and he's saying, hey, look at this. And then this morning it rebounded, and obviously I was able to prevail in that conversation. Now, in addition to that, we've got a number of earnings that have come out. So a staggered roster here today, Anthony. We're going to kick it off with SATO. So they've just reported full year audited results for 2023. TeraWulf also came out with preliminary results for 2023, and then we had BitDeer come out with preliminary results for Q4. So a lot to go through in the first session today. Then we're going to be doing another video actually talking about some of the February results as well. So Anthony, let's kick it off with our friends at SATO Technologies. This is one of the smaller miners. Romaine's been on the channel a couple of times. We just actually did the big ordinal giveaway courtesy of Romaine and the team at SATO. They came out with revenues up 65%, just north of $17.5 million Canadian, positive cash flow, positive EBITDA, and positive net profit for the fiscal year 2023. So some really strong numbers out of this junior miner. What were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the key thing there for investors is that they've produced a profit, and net profit 776,000 Canadian dollars, about just under 580,000 US dollars. So, good figures all round there. One thing that strikes me from them is two things that strike me really. One is their ability to get the most out of their machines on a monthly basis. So we saw in 2023 when they joined the analysis, and we saw them trying to take on the likes of Bitfarms and CleanSpark and Iris Energy and Hive Digital in those top positions there. I think the end of the year in 2023, in fourth place from a production perspective. So getting the most out of machines is really important for miners, because you're only as good as what you do at the moment. In 2024, for January, they finished top miner, and they're going to be close to that for February as well. We've not got all the results in yet, but they're in that sort of top 3 bracket already for February. We've got most of the results. I'm still waiting for a couple more to come in. They'll probably come in tomorrow. So production-wise, been really good. The other thing that strikes me is the energy costs. You know, they are very transparent, more transparent than probably all the miners, because they not only put out the energy costs from an electricity perspective, but they also put on all the additional costs of energy, like the transmission fees. And so, you know, they managed to mine Bitcoin in 2023 at an average price of about $15,000 per coin, which is a good figure. And bear in mind, we're coming up to the halving now. So, you know, in less than 7 weeks, you know, the energy price to mine a Bitcoin will literally double. It'll take twice as long to mine that Bitcoin itself. And so if you've got an average energy cost of $15,000, that'll be $30,000. And then, you know, you also have the operating costs. Well, you know, we've seen them manage to produce great results when the Bitcoin price was nowhere near it is at the moment. So it looks like they've got their it looks like the growth in order there to go into the halving. They've got that good energy price. They've got a good efficiency. They've got great production. They've got a small amount of cash flow. They've also now informed that they've got an additional amount of megawatts available for some expansion, because that's the one thing that was probably missing from 2023 is the ability to grow hash rate, and they were maintaining that sort of like half an exahash throughout the year. So 2024, I'm sure some shareholders will be wanting to hear more information about that, and they do have a report coming out where investors can listen into. I think it's on the 12th of March. We may be able to put that in the comments on the actual video so that people are aware when that is, because I know there'll be some interest in that. But I think it's the 12th of March when Romain, the co-founder, chairman and CEO, will give an update of what happened in 2023, and also about what's going to happen as they approach the halving and going forward from that. So overall, you know, good set of results. Nothing wrong with producing a profit. We've seen, you know, only a couple of miners produce profits already, and quite a few have produced, you know, net losses for 2023. So, you know, they can stand in the box and put their flag out today with that announcement. But yeah, but good numbers.
Yeah, really strong results in my opinion as well, Anthony. It's nice to include some of these smaller miners because it really does, I guess, hold the big boys to the fire in terms of production and some of these metrics, as we're starting to see, as you alluded to, SATO overtake that top spot for the month. Now, the other thing you talked about was the power costs, and this is actually something that struck me in the TeraWulf update as well. So if we shift over to the full year preliminary results now from TeraWulf, they came in with an average cost per Bitcoin in terms of power of about $8,700 for the year, or 3.2 cents per kilowatt hour. So what were your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, they've come up. I mean, we know throughout the year they like SATO, like Iris Energy, they put their power cost on their updates. So we know it's been, you know, fairly low during the year. It was starting to increase towards the end of 2023 when we started to see that 3.5 cents, which they've been sort of like carrying for most of the year, start creeping to 4 and 5 cents a kilowatt hour. But when you look at the whole of 2023, yeah, they've got a good power cost there. They've just announced that they're going to expand into Nautilus with another 50 megawatts there, and that power cost there is 2 cents a kilowatt hour, 24/7, because it's a nuclear site. So there's no curtailment issues there. Again, they've not produced a full list of results, but they have given some good indications of where they expect to be. So, you know, revenue 69 million, gross profit 41 million, and adjusted EBITDA of 30 million. The one area that shareholders have had some sort of like criticism of is like trying to get the debt down. I mean, we saw the likes of Bitfarms, we saw the likes of Agro, Greenwich Mining in 2022 get these really high levels of debt, and it affected some of these companies. It affected, you know, Core Scientific went into Chapter 11. Argo Blockchain literally could have gone into Chapter 11. when a misplaced email message went out from the company. Bitfarms have done the amazing turnaround. They managed to get rid of all their debt and completed that in February. So we'll come and start another podcast. But TeraWulf, had about 140 million of debt, towards the end of last year, and they've made some great strides now to reduce that. So they've made a few big payments to get it down to about 106 million at the moment. And they've got another payment, which is due to be paid in April, and that'll take it down to about 85, 86 million. And that'll be good on two accounts. One, it'll reduce the amount of interest that they're paying on the debt, so that's always a good sign. And secondly, it'll give shareholders, an understanding that they're, doing everything in their strategy, which is clearly, obviously, to reduce the debt and meeting that timeline that's expected. From everything else, from an operational side, from a growth side, they're ticking every box at the moment. So they're at 7.9 exahash at the moment. They met that target on time. They're due to get to 10 exahash by the end of June. So by the end of the half year, they'll be at 10 exahash. And they're already now announcing that they're increasing their facility, or their mining facility at Nautilus, with an extra 50 megawatts. So that itself, that's maybe another 1.5, 2 exahash to go on top of that there. So everything on that side is going very well. They've made payments on the miners already, so they've got machines coming in that are paid for. And when you've got a low cost of power, you're halfway there, because that's your biggest cost. Yes, they've got the interest payments, but they've got a really low cost of power. I mean, significantly lower than most miners. There's only a couple of miners that can probably talk about the same level of power that TeraWulf are paying. So, a good update. Good to see the debt coming down. We've put out plenty of updates about that in recent months, so it's a positive sign. And we'll see more and more from that. And Patrick will keep shareholders happy that he's making plans to pay that debt down. They do communicate about it. We've had Paul on the channel, we had Nazar on the channel, and I'm sure we'll get either of them back on the channel again to give us more updates about what's going on. But they seem to have done everything they delivered at the moment. Getting to the halving, they've got efficient machines, low cost power, and they've actually got a nice cash balance as well at the moment. So they've actually got I think it's about 50 million in cash.
54.
So that'll help going in. So 54 million, I think, in cash, which was as at the end of the year. So with Bitcoin price at the moment, that actually might be increasing. So, 66,000 today. Bitcoin price was nowhere near that at the end of 2023, never mind end of 2 weeks ago. So that's potentially more revenues coming there. So they're in a sort of like a better position than I think a lot of people felt. And we do know that TeraWulf have got a big following out there. There's a lot of people interested in TeraWulf stock. So that update will be some good news for them. Going in the right direction, get rid of that debt, and they are then sort of like, on equal ground then with that peer group of miners that we've talked about many times.
Yeah, just a quick update. It sounds like Paul does want to get on the channel again, Anthony, after earnings. They had actually reached out to me yesterday, so we'll try and get them on in the next few weeks here. I was going to say the exact same thing. With the price of Bitcoin, it really makes a big impact on these companies' cash flow and the ability to pay down debt, which is optimal timing for TeraWulf. Obviously, that's kind of been the one thorn in their heel, so to speak, all year. And as you said there, Anthony, a huge following that should feel really good about the position TeraWulf's in, I think, right now, approaching the halving. Now, the final update here, so this is preliminary as well. This is just Q4 for 2023 from BitDeer. What struck me on this one, Anthony, we just put out a pretty good video on BitDeer talking about, or you did, breaking down all the various different business units and saying how this company has so many different elements to it or under the hood. Now, in the Q4 update, they actually broke down a lot of those business units, and you could see where dollars were coming from or flowing through. So that was great to see, especially in light of how recently we just talked about that topic. But curious to get your thoughts on BitDeer as well.
Yeah, so we just mentioned about TeraWulf, their financial year for 2023 bringing in 69 million. Now we turn to BitDeer, and this is just the last quarter of 2023. So this is only the last 3 months. And their revenues were 111 million in the last 3 months. So when people, talk about miners, and both of these are sort of like, in that middle tier, that tier 2 level miners behind the big sort of like 3 or 4 at the moment. There's a massive amount of information out there that people don't realize about BitDeer. They're not just a self miner. They've got 3 other services at the moment. And we articulated in the last podcast, they've just announced they're going, the first miner to actually start producing its own mining machines, not through a third party. Like other miners are doing at the moment, but they're going to produce their own machines this year, and that'll keep the cost down there. So that 3 months there, nearly 112 million in revenues, total direct cash cost of about 65 million. So that's giving them a gross margin overall of 42%. If we look at just the self-mining, we call that proprietary mining, so that's the self-mining and cloud hash rate mining, using their own machines, they're actually bringing in a margin of 55%. So 34 million in gross profit, giving 55%. The hosting business itself is giving a 25% margin. Now people say that's a bit low. I mean, it was producing significantly higher than that previously, and I think in the previous quarter. And bear in mind, hosting works better during the bear cycles. There's more opportunity for miners to get, the revenues that way. It doesn't always work when they're going into a bull cycle. So when the price of Bitcoin is rising, miners want to sort of be able to navigate from hosting into self-mining, where there's lot more profits to be made there. So it's not as great in the bear cycle. So we can see from the last quarter, overall margin was 25%. Now that's nothing to be, to be worried about, because we had Jason on the other day from Riot. And their margin for their hosting business was like minus 77 million or something like that. So that's producing no contribution. That 25% or $12 million is a contribution towards the operating cost of the organization. So you don't switch off the hosting contract if it brings in a contribution. If it doesn't bring in a contribution, if it's making a loss at the direct level, at the gross profit level, then you have to make some decisions about, actually, should we continue to switch the energy on, which we have to pay for, or do we not turn on the energy and not incur more costs? So those are sort of the decisions that the finance teams and the accountants will be looking at, providing that information to senior teams there. But in BitDeer's case, they're still making a 25% contribution based on the hosting, and we know that what BitDeer will do is they've got sort of like flexible contracts there, flexible length contracts with some of their hosting partners. And as those hosting contracts come up for renewal, they can then make a decision to say, actually, do we need at this moment now, going into a bull cycle, are we going to use, or extend a hosting contract, or do we now want to actually put in our own miners in there and have significantly more profits? So they've got that sort of like that flexibility to move between cycles and really, extract the best returns from the best services, literally all throughout all the different cycles. And that's not something that other miners have got in place at the moment. And the game changer is when they bring their own machines out, they're already tested now and tested really well. When they start producing their own machines, them costs that we've seen in the accounts there will start falling, because they won't have to pay third parties, the premium of buying mining machines. And even though miners are getting them quite cheap at the moment, there's still a premium in those prices. Bitmain and MicroBT aren't giving away machines at cost price at the moment. They're making their profit, and BitDeer realise that, and they can do that. They've got 50 people in our R&D working along there to try and deliver this latest miner. And get that to the market there, and get it into our own facility first, and then if it's viable, to sell it to other mining companies and give more competition out there. And what does competition do? It makes pricing more better for everybody then. So that's a really good it's a really good point to make about BitDeer. But from an earnings perspective, it's a good Q3 update. It's only going to get better because the Bitcoin price is rising now. So if that was a good Q for last quarter for last year, the first quarter of 2024 should be even better.
Yeah, it most definitely should. And I like that comparison of revenue, really looking at TeraWulf versus BitDeer, because it does put it into contrast, or does put it into perspective, I guess, for you, Anthony. And of course, the internal miner machine that they're building out, the Seal miner, I think 18 joules per terahash, you said, Anthony, last video. So very competitive with the S and T21 models. And that's going to be a really interesting story or theme to follow throughout 2024 as well. So as I said in the intro, Anthony, no shortage of news. I'll kick it back to you for any closing thoughts. Great update today, and looking forward to see the audited or actual results come out for these companies in subsequent weeks.
Yeah, these, as I say, two of these are sort of like preliminary, giving you a flavour of what's going to come out. So there's no massive surprises. But I was pleased to see SATO making a profit. A lot of people concerned about some of the smaller miners, how they're going to manage. Well, there's a miner. And actually, we do cover quite a few smaller miners, and all of them actually are positioned well going into the halving. So, DMG also had their results recently, and they had I think they produced a profit too. So, some of these smaller miners just maybe doing things a little bit better, not having to worry about 9, 10, 11 different sites around the globe. Focus on what they do there. As I say, there will always be an issue about growth because, to grow, you need capital. How are you going to raise capital when you're a small miner? We've just seen the likes of, Marathon's update, and they're at sort of like, $500 million in cash on the balance sheet, plus, $1 billion of Bitcoin as well. So they've had the facility to use the at-the-market offering. Some of these smaller miners haven't got that ability to raise the levels they need to grow in as quick time. But as I say, they're doing things right. They're doing things within their sort of like budget, and making a profit. Can't ask any more than that.
Yeah, you can't argue with a profit, especially coming out of a bear market year like that, Anthony. So great update. Just a little teaser for the audience, Anthony. We talk about this inclusion of miners in our analysis. We're actually looking at it starting to include a few more miners out there, some of the popular names, both the bigger and smaller companies. So stay tuned for that as well, you guys. But Anthony and I are very committed to getting this as the most robust, inclusive, and accurate platform out there for the Bitcoin mining stocks and Bitcoin mining companies. So that's it for today's video. If you're still watching, hopefully you found value. Hit the like button, you guys. It helps get this content to other people who may find value. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, McNallie Money, feel free to join. Anthony, we just hit 41,800 subscribers this morning, so we're within striking distance of 42,000. We appreciate all the support, you guys. And of course, leave a comment in the section below what you thought about the earnings report that we talked about in today's video, and if you're holding any of these miners in your own portfolio. Anthony, thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow, buddy.
Catch you soon.